This video is a review of range names and multiple sheets with the same data. So please open Chapter 5.1 Practice from the Dropbox. Each sheet has different information in A2, that's the month. In D2, that's the retail markup percentage, and in column B, all the rest of the information is the same. So sheet 2 says January, 10%, sheet 3, February, 15%, different quantities, etc. So the first thing you want to do is change the sheet names to reflect the month that's in A2. Now in the book, when they talk about range names, they do explain what a range name is, but they don't say why you'd usually use a range name. So really what a range name is when you apply a range name to a cell address, it makes that cell address an absolute address. And in Chapter 2, we talked about absolute addresses. In this worksheet, retail price is going to be wholesale price times 1 plus retail markup. I'm going to need to make retail markup an absolute address, so when I copy the formula down in column D, it won't go from D2 to D3 to D4. There's two ways to do it. Click on the cell that needs to have the range name, click on the Formulas tab, and click on Define Name. Your range names cannot contain spaces or hyphens. They can contain periods and underscores. I usually do range names uppercase and lowercase because it's easier to read. The range name cannot begin with a number, but it can contain a number. So I'm going to call this December Retail Markup. Remember, no spaces. If you put a space in a range name, it'll give you this error message. So no spaces in range names. Do start it with DEC for December, Jan for January, just because that way when we look at the range names you'll be able to see it. So this dialog box displays the range name, and it actually tells you the cell address it refers to, and it's the sheet name, exclamation point, that separates your sheet name from your cell address, and then your cell address, and it automatically makes your cell address absolute. You should leave your range name cell address as absolute because people expect any cell address with range name to be an absolute address. And then make a range name for each retail markup on each sheet. So I'm going to make this one through Define Name too. Click on the cell address, click on Define Name. Hit Enter. The other way to make a range name is, I'm on February. Click on the name box, down arrow. That selects the cell address that's selected, and then type in the range name. If you do it this way, you have to hit Enter when you're done with it. If you don't hit Enter, it won't accept it. Do the same thing for March and April. To view all the range names in any workbook, you click on the down arrow for name box, and it gives you your list of all your range names. You cannot make this larger, unfortunately. And the range names are always in alphabetical order. The range names must be unique within the workbook. You can also click on Name Manager, and that lists all your range names, again in alphabetical order, and it should tell you what the range name is, what the value is inside that cell address, and what worksheet and cell address it's picking up. So April retail markup picks up the April sheet, cell D2. December retail markup picks up the December sheet, cell D2, etc. So going back to the December sheet, to use a range name in a formula, and this I'm going to make one formula in each sheet where it multiplies C5, which is the wholesale price, times 1 plus the retail markup. So instead of just telling me what the markup is, it's going to be the markup plus the wholesale price. Then to choose the range name, I can either click on the Formulas tab, Use in Formula, gives me all my range names, and click on the range name. And make sure you end your formula with the parentheses, Enter, copy the formula down. And I can see that my formula is now C5 times 1 plus December retail markup, and when I go down a cell, it's always picking up the range name of December retail markup. This would be instead of picking up cell D2 and making D2 an absolute address. So again, a range name automatically makes the cell address an absolute address. Click on January, same thing. Another way to pick up the range name, and this is much easier, is just click on the cell address. If the cell address has a range name, it will put the range name up here and in here. Again, end it with a parentheses, and hit enter. It's far easier than doing it this way. This might be new in 2016. I'm not sure whether you could do that in 2013. Copy your formula down, and again, all your formulas are cell address times 1 plus and the range name. And do the same thing for February, March, and April. Equals C5 times 1 plus February range name, and parentheses. In March equals C5 times 1 plus range name, and parentheses. Copy the formula down. And in April equals C5 times 1 plus range name, parentheses. Copy the formula down. So on the December sheet, my formula is December retail markup. January, my formula includes January retail markup. February includes February retail markup. March includes March retail markup. April includes April retail markup. If you ever have any errors in your range name, go to Name Manager. I'm going to add a bad range name now, just for the sake of having a bad range name. So if you have a bad range name, go to Name Manager. It gives you a list of all your range names for this entire workbook in alphabetical order. If I click on this one and I want to delete it, just click Delete. Make sure you delete all range names that you're not using anymore. If you need to change one, let's say it was spelled wrong, you click on it and click on Edit, and then you could make changes here. So maybe I wanted to call it April retail markup. Still picks up the cell address. You could also change the cell address here if you picked up the wrong cell address. You can't just overwrite a range name though. You'd have to add a new range name and then delete the old range name. So I'm going to edit this and bring it back to where it was. Next several pages in the practice exercise go over creating sheets, moving sheets, and you've done that in chapter 4. So I'm going to go to grouping sheets on page 5. This is covered at the beginning of chapter 5. They don't call it grouping, and I'll show you in a second why I do. So when you're grouping sheets, what you want to do is if you want to format all your sheets the same, instead of having to format each sheet separately. So to group sheets, you click on the first sheet, hold down Shift, click on the last sheet, whichever one you clicked on first shows up on top, and then it says Group up in the title bar. Excel does not call this grouping. Excel calls something else grouping. I don't really know what the term is for this, but I'm going to call it grouping sheets. So now all my sheets are grouped because they all have white tabs, and this says Group up in the title bar. Now any formatting I do, I'm doing to all sheets at the same time. And if you remember, all these sheets have the same information in the same place. So I'm going to bold A1 and A2. I'm going to bold row 4. I'm going to make row 4 center, green font, and angle counterclockwise. Center, green font. And this is your font color. That's the actual color of the font. This is the fill color. That's the color of the background. And angle counterclockwise. If you need to resize this row so it's taller so you can see all the text, point to the vertical line underneath the row and double click. Same as when you resize columns. Select the whole worksheet. There's your Select All button. Choose commas. No decimals. Select the retail markup value. Change the format to %. Select the total profit column. Change the format to currency. No decimals. And once I have values in here, that'll show up. To turn grouping off, it still says group up here, I click on any worksheet. If that doesn't work, sometimes it doesn't in older versions, you can also right click on the tab and choose Ungroup Sheets. And when you click on each sheet, you can see all the formatting has been applied to all the selected sheets. One good thing about grouping sheets is if you want to make a change to all the sheets at once, you can do that with grouping. So again, I'm selecting December through April, click on December, shift click on April. I'm going to change the wholesale price on downhill skis from $300 to $350, and because I have all sheets selected, December, January, February, they all have $350. So since all the sheets were selected, it replaces that value on all the sheets. If you wanted to format every other sheet, so not consecutive sheets, but non-consecutive sheets, hold down Control, and then select the non-consecutive sheets. It still says group at the top. Excel doesn't care whether you're grouping 2 sheets or 20 sheets or every other sheet. It's just considering a grouping. Now only the sheets with the white tabs are going to be the ones affected by whatever I do next. So I'm going to change row 4 to be a different font color just for the sake of something different. To turn group off, I click on any other sheet. Now notice quantity is different on every sheet. So in December, quantity for downhill skis is 20. In January it's 10. In February it's 11. So quantity is different on every sheet. So be very careful when you're grouping that you don't change things that you don't want to change on every sheet. So if I had, this falls into the don't do this category. But if I had all these sheets selected and I change quantity from 20 to 99, I have now done that for every sheet. So be careful when you're grouping. You don't want to leave group on because it will do whatever you say to do to all the selected sheets. I'm going to hit undo, and now all my sheets have different quantities. Page 7, calculations, multiple sheets with same data. This is not really covered in the book, and this is where multiple sheets are useful. I want to do formulas and have the same formula in the same place for every worksheet. Instead of creating a formula for column E in every sheet, I can group all the sheets and create a formula in column E and a formula in column F. So we're going to do that. So click on December, shift click on April. I'm in profit per item in E5, and I'm going to calculate retail price minus wholesale price equals sales address for retail price minus sale address for wholesale price. Total profit equals profit per item times quantity. Enter. And I formatted this column as currency. And then if I want to copy the formula down, I just select both cells and copy the formula down. So then in row 5, the formula is D5 minus E5, row 6, D6 minus E6, D7 minus E7, and same in column F, E5 times B5, E6 times B6. None of these need to be absolute because if I copy the formula down, it goes to the next row, and that's correct. You can group the sheets and click on each sheet, and then again you can see that now I have the formulas and the answer in each sheet, and they're all different answers because everybody has a different quantity. Now if I want to make a year-to-date sheet, I'm just going to copy December to the end of the sheets. I'm going to name this year-to-date. I'm going to change 8.2 to be year-to-date. And because year-to-date is going to pick up values from December, January, February, March, and April, I need to delete the quantities in column B. I also need to delete the retail price in column D because the formula picked up retail markup. And I'm going to delete the retail markup only on the year-to-date sheet. So what I'm going to do is make a calculation that adds up quantity for downhill skis for December, January, February, March, and April. And then calculate retail price from the other sheets as well. So to make a formula that's going to add up the value from the other sheets, this is how you do it. Click on the cell where the answer is going to be, so I'm on the year-to-date sheet in the quantity D5. Start your formula with equals. Click on December. Click on downhill skis for December, plus January, downhill skis, plus February, downhill skis, plus March, downhill skis, plus April, downhill skis, and you can see in the formula bar it's equals sheet name exclamation point separating your sheet name from your cell address plus sheet name address plus sheet name address plus sheet name address plus sheet name address. Make sure you don't end your formula with a plus sign because then Excel will be looking to see what you're going to add to it. And double check your formulas to make sure you're picking up the right cell addresses and you don't pick up the same cell address twice or skip one or something. Hit enter. So then on my year-to-date sheet, I have a formula that says equals December B5 plus January B5 plus February B5 plus March B5 plus April B5. And if anything changes in any of these sheets, then this will automatically adjust. Now I'm going to create the same formula for cross-country skis just because you should practice it so you know how to do it. So the formula is equals December cross-country skis plus January cross-country skis plus February cross-country skis plus March cross-country skis plus April cross-country skis, and enter. So it's always equals sheet, address, operator, plus minus times divide, sheet, address, plus, sheet, address, plus. Now because retail price is not going to be calculated using the percentage because each month had a different percentage, this one's going to be also adding up the cell D5 in December, January, February, March. So formula, so I click on retail price, D5, the cell where the answer will be, start my formula with an equals December retail price plus January retail price plus February retail price, etc. And then in my formula bar it says equals December D5 plus January D5 plus February D5 plus March D5 plus April D5. Now another way you can do this, and this only works if you have the exact same information in the exact same cells on every sheet, is this. Is you click on the cell where the answer is going to be, and the sheet where the answer is going to be, and this only works on straight addition. Start my formula with equal sum, left parentheses. Click on the first sheet, click on the cell address, right now I'm on telemark boots, hold down shift, and click on the last sheet. Do not click on year to date, and hit enter. And then the formula is equal sum, December : April, which means December through April, exclamation point, separating your sheet name from your address. That means add up cell B7 on every worksheet between December and April. Do it one more time. Equal sum, left parentheses, click on the first sheet, click on the cell address you're doing the math on, downhill boots, hold down shift, click on the last sheet. You do not have to put in the end parentheses, Excel will do that for you. Hit enter. One more time. Equal sum, parentheses, sheet, address, hold down shift, then click on the last sheet name, and then hit enter. Again, this only works when you're adding up the exact same information in the exact same cells. So notice telemark skis is always in B7, downhill boots is always in B8, cross-country boots is always in B9. I could have done the same thing for retail price. So I'll do that. Equal sum, this is retail price for cross-country skis, December cross-country skis, hold on shift, click on April, hit enter. And you can drag the formula down. So the equal sum you can use anytime you have the exact same information in the exact same place on every sheet. Where you have to do equals sheet address plus sheet address, that's when you have different information on every sheet. So in your assignment 5.1, it's going to be like this worksheet where you have the same information in the same cells on every sheet. In the assignment 5.2, you're going to have different information on different sheets, and then you're going to have to do equals sheet address plus sheet address plus sheet address. Next, I want to select all the sheets and add all the totals down into the total row. So again, I click on the first sheet, shift click on the last sheet, select all my values, down to my total row, and auto sum. Now with all sheets still selected, I can turn on print grid lines. And I can insert a footer on all sheets. Sheet name in the middle, and then each name will display on each sheet. File name on the right, your name on the left. Click any place in the worksheet, click on normal, control home. I'm going to save it first. If I were to go to print preview now, I'd see here's my grid lines, here's my footer. I'm on the December sheet, January sheet, January information, February sheet, February information, March, April, and year to date. So there's all my grand totals in year to date. If I had all these sheets selected and I hit print, it would print all these sheets at once. Nice feature. And I'm going to save this and close it.